We created stories to unite our species. We exploited nature to achieve power. And we innovated constantly to redesign our life. Yet the world today is by no means fair and equitable, and freedom remains a farce for the masses. There continues to exist widespread inequities and rampant polarization. In this age of information, our selfish minds and hearts are racing towards something, but most of us don't know what that something is. So, amidst all this, I ask everyone to slow down, refocus your lenses, and ask yourself this: do we really know who we are anymore? I want to begin by talking about meditation and how that can lead to a fairer world. So, personally, I started meditating around a year back, and I have done so every day for at least 15 minutes. After 2 months or so of meditating, I started noticing profound changes in my life, mainly that I felt happier, that I could relate to people better, and that I could differentiate between the important and the unimportant in my life. Basically, when you learn to focus on something as obvious as your breathing, first, you're then able to focus on the bigger things in life, and secondly, you're able to differentiate between reality and fiction in the sense of what is actually happening and what is a construct of your own thoughts. Moreover, people often want to understand why they feel a certain way. Like, for example, they want to understand why they feel angry, why they feel fear or sadness. But I believe that they cannot truly do that until they understand something as simple as their bodily sensations. I contend that if people all over the world can make meditating a habit similar to the habit of brushing their teeth, then it can really change their outlook on life and change the world for the better as well. Thus, I feel that if meditation had such an effect on me, it can positively affect others as well and ultimately have a ripple effect on the world. I understand that all of this can sound abstract, so here I want to substantiate what I've talked about with certain research studies. Some studies show that meditation can change the neural circuitry in ways that make a person more compassionate, as well as more inclined to have positive feelings towards a victim of suffering and to see things from their perspective. Further research suggested that meditation can change not only the internal emotional states but also a person's actual behavior. One study found that people made charitable donations at a higher rate after being trained in meditation for just 2 weeks. Another study found that people who get the same amount of measly meditation are about 3 times more likely than non meditators to give up their chair when they see someone on crutches and in pain. In a 2012 study, people who were new to meditation underwent 8 weeks of training in mindfulness. Before the training, they got MRI scans done that show where brain activity is occurring. While they were in the MRI scanner, they viewed a series of pictures, some of which were upsetting, like a photo of a burn victim. After 8 weeks of mindfulness meditation, when they viewed the upsetting pictures in the scanner again, they showed reduced activity in a crucial brain region, the amygdala. The amygdala is our brain's threat detector, which includes releasing stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. It also glues our attention to the threat, making it hard for us to focus on anything else. What's striking about this study is that the reduced amygdala activity lasted even when the participants were in their ordinary state, that is, when they were not in their mindfulness meditative state. Thus, this shows that meditation can make your mind undisturbed. It can help you focus on what's important. It can help you pay heed to others' issues. Here, another type of meditation, the loving and kindness meditation, can actually make people more compassionate. Davidson writes in his book The Altered Traits that loving kindness also boosts the connections between the brain's circuits for joy and happiness and the prefrontal cortex. a zone critical for guiding behavior. He further writes, and I quote, "The greater the increase in the connection between these regions, the more altruistic a person becomes following compassion meditation training." Thus, such evidence clearly shows that this world can indeed be made a better place, because compassion is really the need of the hour. It can lead to reduction in violence, reduction in conflict, and ultimately people would be better able to understand each other. Anyways, moving on, here I briefly want to talk about ungendering education, and then I will try to connect it to meditation. Let me start with a small story I heard once. Some British educators once went to a very remote village in Africa to look at the children there and understand how they lived their lives. They asked the children to race from point A to point B and told them that they would get food at the end of the race. What the children did was really surprising, and it shocked the educators. The children held hands and ran the race together and finished all together. This simple story has a very important lesson, and I believe this is also what feminist thinkers have been arguing for. That is mainly lateral thinking, cooperation, and uplifting everyone instead of just some. I feel that the whole idea of competition is cheaped in and comes from a masculine approach to life. This race that you're running, survival of the fittest, all of this comes from a masculine perspective. Gendering of education, in fact, starts at the primary level itself. When, for example, he is commonly substituted for a person, or as a study found that the teacher's default assumption about girls is that they are innately less capable than boys and thus need to work harder to reach that level. As they grow older, this gender gap continues to increase, and all of this is apart from the access gap. What we think we study objectively is, I believe, and as Jade Antickner points out, that objectivity is associated with masculinity. Thus, it is high time that we refocus and adjust our lenses to think differently. For example, a feminist perspective talks about dynamic objectivity, which contains both masculine and feminine elements in it. Further, it talks about power as collective empowerment and not power as domination, which is the universally accepted norm. Now, the way to rethink and unlearn and understand these biases is, I believe, through meditation, apart from education, which really does need an overhaul. So, when you meditate, you're able to question your own biases, preconceptions, understand where the gender discrimination is coming from, and ultimately arrive at a fairer conclusion or decision. It gives you the time to take a pause and filter out the unnecessary and the unimportant. Essentially, meditation provides you a means to be fair to yourself. And once you're fair to yourself, you can be fair to others as well. This combination, this mixture of meditation and ungendering education or adopting a feminist outlook towards life can go miles in changing the world for the better for all. It would help us do away with the we they attitude and appreciate the interconnectedness of all things. It would help us adopt the African worldview, wherein the individual is seen as acting within the social order rather than upon it. Thus, in a sense, I feel that as human beings, we are in some way morally obligated to meditate, if indeed, and it does makes us better people. Thus, to conclude, I would like to quote Dalai Lama. If every 8-year-old in the world is taught meditation, we will eliminate violence from the world within one generation. And violence here is not only in the parochial sense of the term, but it is all encompassing. It includes the violence within yourself and the violence outside. So, this is my way to a fairer world. Thank you.